Let me ask you something. Have you ever sat there wondering, why do I feel like I'm always the one doing the chasing? Why do I feel like the person I want isn't matching the energy I'm giving them? That question has lived in the minds of so many people who find themselves giving, yet feeling invisible to the very person they crave attention from. And here's the twist: attraction doesn't grow stronger when you give more. It grows when there's space, value, and energy for someone to lean into. What makes someone want to chase you relentlessly isn't luck. It's the psychology of desire. And when you understand it, you stop asking why no one is pursuing you and start creating dynamics where they can't help but do so. Have you ever noticed how people seem to lose interest the moment everything becomes too easy? Think about it. When you work for something, when you put in time, energy, and effort, you begin to value it far more than if it was simply handed to you. This principle doesn't just apply to careers, to money, or to fitness. It applies deeply to relationships and attraction. One of the biggest mistakes people make is believing that giving more will automatically make someone see their worth. They think, if I show them how much I care, if I prove I'll always be there, they'll appreciate me more. But ironically, the opposite often happens. When there is no effort required from the other side, the appreciation decreases. The psychology of human behavior shows us clearly that we value what we invest in, not what costs us nothing. Imagine for a moment that you've just bought an expensive piece of art. You saved for it, searched for the right piece, made sacrifices, and finally hung it up in your home. Every time you walk past it, you feel a sense of pride because it represents your effort. Now, imagine someone gave you a similar piece for free. No effort, no sacrifice, just handed it to you. You might enjoy it, you might even admire it, but the attachment will never be the same. Why? Because the human brain bonds more deeply to the things it has invested in. That emotional wiring doesn't change when we move from objects to people. When you give everything of yourself immediately in a romantic context, you strip away the chance for the other person to feel that natural pull of effort and investment. This is why people sometimes find themselves saying, why do they chase after someone who treats them badly, yet ignore someone like me who would give them the world? The truth is, it's not about being treated badly. It's about being given something to strive for. When someone has to invest energy to earn your attention, when they have to show up consistently to gain your trust, they are unknowingly wiring themselves to value you more deeply. Think about the concept of commitment. Commitment doesn't come from words, it comes from action. If you hand over your time, your energy, your body, and your emotions without requiring anything in return, there is no action on their part, no foundation being laid. And when there's no foundation, there's nothing anchoring their attraction. This is why so many people end up in situations where the other person drifts away. They never had to fight for a place in your life, so there's nothing holding them there. This doesn't mean withholding affection or playing manipulative games. It means creating healthy dynamics where the other person contributes. Relationships thrive when they are built on reciprocity, when both people are showing effort. If one side does all the chasing and all the giving, it's not a relationship, it's a one-way street. But when you create space for someone to invest in you, something magical happens. Their emotional attachment grows in proportion to their effort. Every message they send, every thoughtful action they take, every time they adjust their schedule to prioritize you, their brain records it as, this is important. This person matters. Let's take an example. Imagine you're dating someone new, and instead of being constantly available, you allow them to make plans, to choose how they'll impress you, to take the initiative. When they book that dinner, when they arrange that surprise, when they step up to show you they're serious, they are deepening their own sense of connection to you. If you had done all of it, they would enjoy it, sure, but they wouldn't feel the same level of personal stake in the outcome. Their chase is what creates their bond. Now, here's the fascinating part: even small investments count. It doesn't have to be grand gestures. It could be them texting first, asking questions to learn more about you, remembering details from past conversations, or making small sacrifices to see you. Each of these moments acts like threads, weaving a stronger emotional connection. The brain is constantly keeping score, and the more energy someone invests, the more they begin to believe that you're worth that energy. On the other hand, when you eliminate this natural dynamic by overcompensating, you rob them of the chance to form that bond. If you're always the one texting first, always the one rearranging your schedule, always the one giving without pause, you're doing all the weaving while they simply enjoy the finished fabric. And while they might appreciate the comfort, they won't feel the same sense of ownership. It's like watching a movie without ever buying a ticket. You enjoy it, but you don't truly feel invested. This is why restraint can be one of the most powerful tools in attraction. Restraint doesn't mean coldness, it means balance. It means allowing enough room for someone else to put in effort, to feel the stretch of chasing, and to experience the satisfaction of earning. That satisfaction is what locks in their pursuit. It tells their subconscious, I worked for this, I contributed to this, therefore it matters to me. So the lesson here is not to give less of yourself, but to give in a way that invites reciprocity. Allow the person you're interested in to take steps toward you. Let them feel the thrill of effort and the pride of contribution. Because in the end, it's not about manipulation or strategy. It's about understanding that human beings cherish what they earn. When someone invests in you, they're not just showing they care, they're building the very attachment that makes them want to chase you relentlessly. Have you ever asked yourself why some people seem to command respect and admiration effortlessly, while others struggle to be taken seriously in relationships? The difference often lies in one thing: clarity. Clarity is one of the most underrated but powerful forces in attraction. When you are clear about what you want, what you will accept, and what you will not tolerate, you become magnetic. Most people don't realize that vagueness is the enemy of desire. When you don't know your standards, you send mixed signals, and mixed signals confuse people. Confusion doesn't create passion, it creates hesitation, and hesitation kills momentum. But when someone sees you standing firmly in your standards unapologetically, they're forced to make a choice, either rise to meet you or step aside. That moment of decision is what ignites real pursuit. Think about a time when you walked into a store where the prices weren't listed. You see something you like, but you have no idea what it costs. You hesitate. You wonder, is it worth it? Will I regret spending that much? Maybe I should wait. Now imagine another store where everything is clearly marked. You might not like every price tag, but you know exactly what you're getting into. That clarity makes it easier to commit. Relationships work the same way. If you don't articulate your value and standards, you leave people in that same uncertainty. And uncertainty is rarely attractive. Clarity doesn't mean making demands or issuing ultimatums. It means living your life in such a way that your boundaries are evident in your actions. For example, if someone only calls you late at night when it's convenient for them, and you continue to accept those calls, you've communicated without words that you'll settle for crumbs. If, however, you politely but firmly decline and make it clear that your time is valuable, you've set a standard. Suddenly, the person realizes that if they want your attention, they need to show up differently. That is the kind of clarity that generates desire. It tells them you're not desperate for their presence. You're selective, and selection creates value. Now, there's a powerful psychological principle at play here. Humans crave certainty. We may flirt with ambiguity, but deep down, we're drawn to people who know who they are and what they stand for. When you exude certainty in your standards, it creates a sense of stability. That stability is attractive because it suggests confidence, and confidence is a natural magnet. Someone who knows where they're going inspires others to want to follow. In relationships, clarity functions the same way. It makes people feel safe, but also challenged. They know you won't bend for just anyone, and that exclusivity fuels pursuit. It's also important to understand that clarity filters. It acts like a sieve, letting through only those who are truly aligned with you, while blocking those who are not. Many people fear being clear about their standards because they think it will scare people off. And yes, it will scare some off, but those are the ones who were never serious about giving you what you need in the first place. When clarity drives someone away, you haven't lost anything. You've saved yourself time. On the other hand, when clarity resonates with someone, it lights a fire under them. They see that you hold yourself to a higher bar, and if they want you, they have to bring their best self to the table. Imagine you're interviewing candidates for an important role in your company. If you don't outline the requirements, the expectations, and the level of performance needed, you'll attract a flood of applicants, many of whom are unqualified. But when you set clear criteria, you narrow the field to those who are truly capable and committed. The same dynamic applies to dating. If you are vague, you'll attract anyone and everyone, but mostly those who don't align with your deeper needs. When you are clear, you repel the casual, the non-committal, and the half-hearted, while pulling in the ones who are ready to meet your standards. The beauty of clarity is that it doesn't need to be loud or aggressive. In fact, it works best when it's quiet, calm, and consistent. If you value respect, you simply don't entertain disrespect. If you value effort, you don't reward laziness. If you value consistency, you don't tolerate hot and cold behavior. Each action you take communicates these values more loudly than words ever could. Over time, the person you're dealing with begins to internalize that being in your life is not a casual affair. It requires real effort, and because of that, their pursuit intensifies. They know that winning you is not a game of convenience. It's a conscious decision to rise to your level. What many people forget is that attraction isn't just about chemistry or charm. It's about structure. Clarity provides the structure that makes pursuit possible. Without it, the other person is wandering in the dark, unsure of how to move forward. With it, they have a clear path, and clarity plus desire creates momentum. Momentum is what transforms curiosity into chase, and chase into commitment. So when you stand in clarity, you not only protect yourself from being undervalued, but you also create the exact conditions for someone to pursue you relentlessly. Because at the end of the day, desire is born not out of confusion or compromise, but out of certainty, and nothing is more certain or more attractive than someone who knows their worth and makes it clear. Have you ever wondered why some relationships feel exciting in the beginning, but quickly fade into something dull or lifeless? Often, it's because the dynamic has lost its variety. Human beings are wired for stimulation. Our emotions crave richness. And when every interaction feels predictable, desire begins to evaporate. Emotional variety is the lifeblood of attraction. Without it, even the strongest spark will eventually dim. The reason is simple: we are not built to respond only to comfort, nor are we built to thrive only on challenge. We need a balance between the two, a rhythm that allows both safety and excitement to coexist. Think about your favorite movie. If it only had one emotional tone, say happiness from start to finish, it would grow boring within minutes. What makes a story captivating is its shifts, the tension before the resolution, the laughter breaking up the drama, the surprise that follows predictability. That contrast is what keeps you glued to the screen. Relationships function in the same way. If every interaction is soft, gentle, and accommodating, it creates a sense of safety but not a desire. Safety alone doesn't spark passion, it sparks comfort. On the other hand, if every interaction is full of conflict and challenge, the relationship becomes draining. Desire cannot flourish in chaos. What creates sustainable attraction is the dance between warmth and challenge, encouragement and playful resistance, predictability and surprise. Consider the dynamic of flirtation. Flirtation is exciting because it's not flat. It has ups and downs. There's teasing followed by reassurance, laughter followed by a moment of intimacy. This back and forth keeps the energy alive. When you bring emotional variety into your interactions, you prevent the relationship from falling into monotony. It's not about being dramatic or manipulative, but about allowing your full range of personality to come through. Too often, people mistakenly believe they have to be endlessly agreeable to keep someone interested. They hold back their playful sarcasm, their wit, their opinions, because they fear rocking the boat. But in doing so, they flatten the emotional landscape and attraction suffers. Imagine eating your favorite meal every single day without variation. At first, it feels amazing. You love it, you crave it, you look forward to it. But by the 20th day, no matter how much you enjoyed it initially, the excitement fades. You start yearning for something different. The same principle applies emotionally. When interactions lack variation, the brain begins to check out. It no longer feels stimulated, no longer anticipates what's next, because it already knows what's coming. Emotional variety prevents this by introducing layers of unpredictability that keep the other person engaged. But here's the important distinction: variety is not chaos. It's not about hot and cold behavior or creating insecurity. It's about emotional depth. Showing someone that you can be nurturing in one moment and teasing in the next demonstrates that you are a multi-dimensional person. That richness is what keeps them drawn to you. When you show that you can be fun, serious, passionate, supportive, playful, and strong, you become an entire world they want to keep exploring. People don't chase shallow experiences, they chase depth. There's also a psychological foundation to this. Neuroscience tells us that dopamine, the chemical of anticipation and reward, spikes not when we receive a predictable outcome, but when there's an element of surprise. If every time you interacted with someone, you could predict exactly how they'd respond, your brain would produce less excitement. But when there's novelty, when you can't quite predict what's coming next, dopamine levels rise. This doesn't just make interactions more fun, it makes them addictive. Someone who provides emotional variety becomes someone the brain craves because the experience is stimulating and fulfilling on multiple levels. Take an example of a conversation. If you're always serious, the energy becomes heavy. If you're always joking, the connection becomes superficial. But when you know when to laugh, when to be serious, when to challenge, and when to show vulnerability, the other person feels engaged in a journey. They lean in because the interaction feels alive. They chase because they don't want that feeling to end. Emotional variety also builds resilience in the relationship. When a bond has experienced multiple layers of emotions, joy, challenge, vulnerability, comfort, it becomes stronger. If the connection has only ever lived in one emotional space, it can easily crumble when something changes. But when you've shared laughter, faced disagreements, and still found closeness, the relationship becomes more enduring. This depth gives the other person not only a reason to chase, but also a reason to stay. Ultimately, emotional variety is about showing up as your whole self. It's about not being afraid to mix sweetness with strength, playfulness with seriousness, affection with independence. When you embody this richness, you become unforgettable. People don't relentlessly pursue the ordinary, they relentlessly pursue what feels rare, multi-layered, and alive. And the most powerful way to create that is through emotional variety. Why is it that some people seem to draw others in effortlessly, while others find themselves overlooked? No matter how much love and attention they pour out, one of the most defining differences is independence. Independence creates a magnetism that nothing else can replicate. When a person is rooted in their own life, when they are rich with passions, friendships, goals, and self-growth, they radiate a rare energy that others can't help but be drawn to. The paradox of attraction is this: the less you need someone, the more irresistible you become to them. People don't chase what feels desperate, they chase what feels whole, what feels complete on its own, and what seems like a privilege to be part of. Think about the people who inspire you most. They usually have something beyond a relationship that gives their life meaning. Maybe it's a passion for their work, a dedication to their art, or a lifestyle that reflects adventure and growth. You're not drawn to them because they are empty and waiting for someone to fill them up. You're drawn because they already appear full. Their independence doesn't repel you. It intrigues you. It makes you curious about their world, and it makes you want to earn a place in it. That same psychology applies when you embody independence in your own life. You become a source of fascination and respect because you are not waiting to be chosen. You've already chosen yourself. When someone makes their entire identity revolve around another person, the balance shifts in a dangerous way. They start to prioritize that person's approval above everything else. Every decision, every mood, every ounce of energy becomes tied to whether that individual is responding positively. And in doing so, they lose the very quality that might have drawn the person in initially. It's as if their individuality dissolves and what's left is dependency. Dependency isn't attractive, it's heavy. It creates pressure instead of desire. The other person starts to feel that instead of being with a partner, they're being tasked with carrying someone's entire sense of worth. Independence, on the other hand, offers lightness. It says, I am happy on my own, I am fulfilled by my life, but I choose to share it with you. That energy is powerful because it creates freedom instead of burden. When you're independent, you're not waiting by the phone for their text, you're out living your life. You're not obsessing over when they'll make plans. You're already building a calendar filled with things that nourish you. You're not terrified of losing them because you understand that your happiness doesn't depend on their presence. That kind of security is magnetic. It makes the other person lean in because suddenly your value doesn't hinge on what they do or don't give you. It comes from within. There's also a deep psychological truth at work here. People are wired to desire what feels scarce. Scarcity creates value. When you have your own world, when your time and energy are directed into meaningful pursuits, you naturally become scarce. Not scarce in the sense of being unavailable or distant, but scarce in the sense that your attention is precious. When you give it, it means something. It carries weight. On the other hand, if you're always available, always waiting, always dropping everything at a moment's notice, your time loses its value. Independence restores that value by showing that your world is already rich, and anyone who enters it is stepping into abundance. Another important aspect of independence is the confidence it builds. When you know you can rely on yourself, when you've built a life that fulfills you, you stop seeking constant reassurance from others. You no longer look for someone else to validate your worth. Instead, your interactions come from a place of confidence. You don't cling, you don't beg, and you don't accept less than you deserve. That confidence shifts the entire dynamic. Suddenly, the other person isn't the one deciding if you're good enough. You're deciding if they deserve a place in your life. That reversal is what fuels the chase. Consider a person who's deeply invested in their career, their hobbies, their friendships. They meet someone they're attracted to, and instead of dropping everything to orbit around them, they integrate that person into their already full life. The result: that new partner has to work to earn their time. They have to step up to prove they can add value. They feel compelled to chase because they see that this person doesn't need them, but they're willing to choose them. That difference between needing and choosing is everything. Independence doesn't mean shutting people out or refusing vulnerability. It means recognizing that you are whole already. When you live this way, you stop coming across as someone who is looking for a rescuer, and instead, you present yourself as someone who is open to partnership. And partnership is infinitely more attractive than rescue. People chase independence because it makes them feel they are entering into something meaningful, not something based on obligation or imbalance. So when you cultivate independence, by nurturing your own passions, building your own stability, and fostering your own happiness, you create a gravitational pull. People want to be near you not because they pity you, not because they feel responsible for your joy, but because they're inspired by you. Independence is not about keeping someone at arm's length. It's about making sure your arms are strong enough to hold yourself up, so that when you do embrace someone, it comes from choice, not from fear of being alone. And that choice is what makes others want to chase you with everything they have. Have you ever noticed how quickly people lose interest when everything is laid out for them from the very beginning? It's a fascinating truth about human nature. We are naturally drawn to mystery. Curiosity is one of the most powerful drivers of attraction. And when you strip that away by revealing everything too soon, you take away the very thing that keeps someone engaged and leaning forward. Think of mystery not as secrecy or game playing, but as pacing. It's the art of allowing someone to discover you gradually, in layers, instead of handing over the entire book in the first conversation. When you leave room for discovery, you create intrigue, and intrigue is the fuel of pursuit. Think about the last time you got hooked on a series or novel. You didn't fall in love with it because it explained every plot twist in the first episode or first chapter. You got hooked because it gave you enough to feel invested but left unanswered questions that pulled you deeper. You wanted to know what happens next. That anticipation kept you returning episode after episode, page after page. Relationships thrive on that same principle. If you give every story, every detail, every emotion, and every piece of yourself too early, there's nothing left to discover. Without discovery, there's no anticipation. Without anticipation, there's no chase. Mystery doesn't mean being distant, cold, or evasive. It's not about withholding affection or avoiding vulnerability. It's about pacing the unveiling of yourself in a way that keeps someone intrigued. It's knowing that you don't need to pour your entire history, your fears, your traumas, and your secrets into the first few meetings. It's allowing those parts of you to be revealed through trust over time. This creates a journey instead of a destination. When someone feels that there's always more to learn about you, they're motivated to stick around and invest in the process of uncovering it. There's a psychological explanation behind why this works. Our brains are wired to find greater reward in things that unfold gradually. It's called the variable reward principle. When we don't know exactly what's coming next, our dopamine levels spike in anticipation. That anticipation is addictive. The same mechanism that keeps people hooked on slot machines or social media feeds also applies in attraction. When every interaction with you has a sense of freshness, when someone feels there's always another layer to discover, they become addicted to that unfolding. It turns you into a source of curiosity they don't want to stop exploring. On the other hand, oversharing too soon has the opposite effect. When you dump everything on the table at once, your life story, your past relationships, your deepest struggles, you may think you're creating intimacy, but often you're overwhelming the other person. Intimacy built too quickly doesn't last because it hasn't been earned. When information is given too freely, it can feel less valuable. But when intimacy develops slowly, each layer feels like a privilege. They don't just learn about you, they earn the right to know you more deeply, and that makes the knowledge meaningful. Consider a conversation early in dating. If someone asks about your weekend, you don't need to give them a full itinerary down to the hour. Share a highlight, leave out the rest, and allow them to ask more. By leaving space, you give them an invitation to engage, to show curiosity, to invest. That small gap becomes the spark for the chase. They lean forward because they want to know more, and in that leaning forward, they become more invested in you. Mystery also works because it keeps you unpredictable. Predictability can be comforting, but when it dominates the entire dynamic, it flattens excitement. If someone always knows exactly what you're going to say, how you'll respond, or what you'll do, the intrigue fades. By showing that you have different sides, sometimes playful, sometimes serious, sometimes adventurous, sometimes thoughtful, you remind them that you're not a one-dimensional person. That unpredictability is what keeps them excited because it signals depth, and depth is what people chase. Even in long-term relationships, mystery continues to matter. Couples who lose their sense of curiosity about each other often drift apart. But those who maintain an air of discovery, by growing individually, by exploring new passions, by surprising each other, keep the bond alive. The chase doesn't end just because the relationship has begun. Mystery is the quality that allows the chase to continue long after the initial spark. It's worth emphasizing that mystery is not about pretending to be someone you're not. It's not about creating an artificial persona. It's about being your full self, but revealing that self in stages. When you live authentically and continue to grow, mystery happens naturally. People will always sense there's more to learn because you are, in fact, always evolving. You don't need to contrive mystery. It emerges when you live a life filled with curiosity, passion, and growth. So when you think about creating relentless pursuit, remember this: people don't chase what they fully understand and can predict with certainty. They chase what excites them, what surprises them, what challenges them to keep learning and leaning in. Mystery is the art of leaving space, of pacing the journey, of being someone who is always unfolding. It's not manipulation, it's a natural part of attraction. And when you master it, you give others a reason to chase you not just once, but over and over again, because they know there will always be more of you worth discovering. Have you ever met someone who talked about what they wanted, set expectations, and then the moment those expectations weren't met, they quietly let it slide? At first, you might think it's compassion, that they're being understanding. But over time, you begin to notice that their words and their actions don't match. And when that happens, respect fades. It's not always conscious, but it's inevitable. Self-respect is the glue that holds attraction together. Without it, the chase dies. No matter how strong the initial chemistry may have been, people may be drawn in by looks, charm, or excitement, but what keeps them pursuing relentlessly is the unshakable sense that you will not betray yourself just to keep them around. Consistency and self-respect means aligning your actions with your values, not just when it's convenient, but especially when it's inconvenient. It's easy to say, I won't tolerate neglect. But what do you do when the person you like cancels on you last minute for the third time? It's easy to say, I want someone who prioritizes me, but what happens when you're always the one initiating and they rarely make the effort? Self-respect doesn't exist in what you declare. It exists in what you allow. Every time you accept less than you said you would, you're teaching the other person how to treat you. You're training them to believe your boundaries are flexible, that your standards are negotiable. And once that belief is set, the pursuit ends. The paradox is that many people bend their standards because they're afraid of losing someone. They fear that if they draw the line too firmly, the person will walk away, and sometimes they will. But the truth is, the wrong person leaves when you show self-respect and the right person stays. The person who values you doesn't want someone who accepts mistreatment. They want someone who knows their worth. Respect is attractive because it signals strength. It shows that you are not desperate, that you don't need external validation to feel whole. And that sense of inner power is what inspires someone to chase you, because they know they can't take your presence for granted. Think about it like a contract. When two people enter into an agreement, the terms only matter if they're enforced. If one side continuously breaks their promises and the other side never addresses it, the contract becomes meaningless. Attraction works the same way. Standards and boundaries only matter if you uphold them. If you keep enforcing them with consistency, you create an unspoken message. Being in my life is a privilege, not a right. If you want to keep this, you have to show up accordingly. That message doesn't push people away. It makes the right ones lean in harder because they know you won't be won cheaply. Self-respect also creates stability. When you know where you stand, when you refuse to compromise your values for temporary comfort, you stop creating chaos in your own emotional world. You no longer bounce between highs of being noticed and lows of being neglected, because you won't entertain someone who gives you inconsistency. That stability doesn't just protect you, it also creates desire. People crave consistency in others because it makes them feel secure. They know what to expect from you, and that reliability is deeply attractive. But when paired with firm self-respect, it also creates challenge. It says, I will meet you with warmth, but only if you meet me with effort. Imagine someone trying to pursue a goal like running a marathon. If there are no rules, no training, no milestones, the goal feels flat and uninspiring. But when there are requirements, training schedules, endurance tests, limits to push past, it becomes meaningful. The struggle creates value. Relationships aren't so different. When you consistently uphold your standards, you create an environment where the other person has to rise. And in rising, they become more invested. It's not about making things difficult. It's about ensuring that what you give is matched with what you receive. That balance turns casual interest into serious pursuit. It's also worth mentioning that self-respect is contagious. When you carry yourself with dignity, when you refuse to accept less than you deserve, you unconsciously teach others how to treat you. They either step up or they fall away, but either way, your consistency commands respect. People may test your boundaries at times. That's natural. But the way you respond tells them everything. If you waver, they learn they can get away with it. If you hold steady, they learn that you're someone to be valued. And once someone sees you as someone to be valued, the chase doesn't just begin, it continues. The most powerful part of self-respect is that it creates desire not through force, but through presence. You don't have to beg someone to treat you right when your actions already demonstrate that mistreatment isn't tolerated. You don't have to demand to be pursued when your consistency naturally inspires pursuit. You become someone whose very existence demands respect. And that kind of presence isn't loud or flashy. It's quiet, steady, and undeniable. In the end, people may be attracted to beauty, charm, or charisma, but what they truly chase, what keeps them coming back, is the rare quality of someone who consistently honors themselves. Because deep down, everyone knows that if you don't respect yourself, no one else truly can. And when you do, you set the stage for a pursuit that is not only relentless, but lasting. When you bring all of these ideas together, a clear truth emerges. The chase isn't about tricks, manipulation, or pretending to be someone you're not. It's about embodying value in a way that naturally draws someone forward. When you allow people to invest in you, they grow more connected. When you stand in clarity, you filter out those who aren't serious. When you bring emotional variety, you keep desire alive. When you live with independence, you radiate fullness instead of need. When you embrace mystery, you create anticipation. And when you uphold your self-respect with consistency, you inspire respect and deepen pursuit. The beauty of this is that none of it requires you to force anything. It's not about chasing after love. It's about creating the kind of energy where love chases after you. It's about stepping into your own worth so fully that the only natural response from the right person is to rise, to lean in, and to hold on. Because the truth is, the most powerful way to make someone chase you relentlessly is not to run after them, but to become the kind of person who is impossible to ignore. And when you do that, you'll find that the right person won't just chase you. They'll never stop choosing you.